Welcome to Lights Camera Remake, where we discuss the fact that Hollywood has no original ideas.
And the Japanese might have beat us when it comes to giant lizard movies.
Ooh, that might be true.
Hey, you're Bridget LaMonica.
Hey, you're Erica Strout. Currently, there are 38 Godzilla movies.
What?
33 are Japanese, 5 are American, and as of the time of this recording, there is another Japanese one and another American one in the works.
Done to death.
Yeah, lots of
Is it?
giant lizard movies. Yeah.
Or is it not done to death yet? Is there really this much fodder?
I feel like he can be reinvented every now and then because he gets to meet King Kong at some point. Mecha Godzilla, Mothra, that's a whole thing.
Son of Godzilla.
That was a trip.
I haven't seen that one.
I remember it being especially cheesy. There's a couple of American movies in the early 2000s. He looked more lizardy, dinosaur-like, and Taco Bell had a tie-in with the Taco Bell Chihuahua.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yes, there was a whole
What
tie-in.
year was that?
I think that was the year 2000 or like 1999.
Okay.
I almost was going to make you watch that movie.
Oh no.
It's famously bad.
You're usually so nice, I don't feel like I could complain if you did ask me to watch that.
Well, there's more episodes yet, Erica.
Oh my god.
This obviously was my episode, and I chose Godzilla, the original from 1954, and I had Erica watch Godzilla -1, which came out in 2023. It was kind of good to finally sit and watch this all the way through, but in a way I look at it from a person in the year 2025. It's so precious. All the miniatures they put together and how they did their effects. And it was 1954. They couldn't do much, but they had a guy in a suit. They had models. They had a puppet version of Godzilla chomping on things. And gosh, they did a lot. They did it so earnestly.
They did. It felt very serious.
I do want to point out, like you've pointed out, his Japanese name is Gojira, and that is a mix of two Japanese words. One is gorira, which means gorilla, and one is kujira, which means whale. So basically, he's like a land whale. I could be butchering any and all Japanese words and names throughout this presentation, by the way. I'm doing my best.
That's all we can do.
Also, like the whole gorilla whale thing, it makes me wonder if they were playing off King Kong, because that movie came out in 1933.
Yeah, they definitely were. There's
Yeah.
definitely some influence from that movie.
Yeah, and then don't worry, they do have a versus movie between Godzilla and King Kong by 1962. So people
Thank
complaining.
God.
I know, the masses were wanting it. So when we complain about crossovers and no original ideas and redoing things, they were doing this stuff from the 30s onward. So let's not be too upset.
You always got to beat any kind of success that you have absolutely to death.
Yeah.
That's one of the rules of Hollywood.
Before someone else does it for you. These movies, especially the early ones, represent this Japanese resentment towards America, pivotally after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6th and 9th of 1945. That was the first use of atomic weapons in warfare, with obviously huge repercussions. Like tens of thousands of people died in those bombings. It forced them, the Japanese, on August 10th, to accept the Allies' surrender. But, I mean, the death toll continued because many people continued to die of radiation poisoning afterwards. So, of course, this was in the public psyche. And movies are often reflective of the culture and history of the time. Also, after World War II, the U.S. would do these nuclear bomb testings in Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands. And the people who lived there were relocated. Depending on whose version of history you get, it was either voluntary or not so voluntary. And when they returned, when it was finally supposedly safe for them to return, they were exposed to dangerously high levels of strontium-90 and cesium-137, so they were evacuated again. The Bikini Atoll tests would later go on to inspire two major media giants. One is obviously Godzilla, the other is SpongeBob.
What? Are you serious?
There's a fan theory that SpongeBob is a result of nuclear testing because he's in Bikini Bottom, and the Bikini Atoll is where the testing took place, and that's why all the fish can talk and they're all weird.
Oh.
I think it's just a fan theory, but it's just funny that I could lump those two
I mean,
together.
it sounds pretty solid, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so the original Godzilla movie, it was almost going to be a giant octopus. Thank God it wasn't. Original Godzilla, 1954, director Ishiro Honda. The writers were Takeo Murata, Ishiro Honda, Shigeru Kayama. Again, I'm
I
probably
think you did
butchering
pretty good
these.
with that.
I'm trying. The estimated budget's $175,000. Box office, it was saying $590,000. But what's interesting is when it got to the US, there's another budget of $100K and a box office of $2 million. Possibly because this has been re-released a few times, so they just added everything together. I'm not entirely sure. I think you can speak on this too, that there's an American version of this movie. So in 1956, there was essentially a collab between American company Jewel Enterprises and Japanese production company Toho, which produced a heavily re-edited Americanized version of the film Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Boo. Boo.
It's kind of wild reading
No
about
shade
that.
on Raymond Burr. He's fine. But boo to this
That's
movie.
so funny. Yeah, I feel the same way now. Yeah. They included new footage starring Raymond Burr, who interacts with body doubles who are Japanese American, Asian American folks. So it looks like he's talking to people in the scenes. They changed plot points and themes. Well, it was actually successful in the sense that it introduced Godzilla to an international audience, especially Americans who were not that big on watching international films at the time, which is sad. I feel like we could have done better.
I get it in the sense that it takes an extra layer of energy to take in a film that's in another language that you don't speak fluently. Like, you're reading the whole time and you have to process not only your reading and you're trying to keep up with what's going on action-wise. Mm-hmm. I just... Personally, even though there are a lot of foreign films that I have loved, I don't always have the energy to watch them. You know, sometimes I need something that I can just watch and understand very easily.
I also like more international films now than I used to. I'm better with reading subtitles, but there are days when I don't feel like reading and watching a movie because I might be multitasking or I might just not be in the right headspace for it.
Or you might have a dizzying fever.
Not a good time to read subtitles. But I totally think everyone should try some international films and see that they might like them. And then just different films from other places. Like we watched a couple of French New Wave movies.
Something that I discovered is that the more I watched foreign films, and for me it was a deep dive into French New Wave because I was discovering that genre, the more I watched them, the more I wanted to watch them. I had discovered a lot of really beautifully made films and really appreciated the storytelling and the quality, and watching older films too. Like the more older films I watch, the more I want to see more of those and taking in more of the classics and that sort of thing. Like the first time I watched Solaris, my mind was blown, you know, like I was like, what is this? And it's a long film and it's in Russian. So it was a lot to take in, but I'm so glad that I did.
So yeah, the Americanized version of Godzilla is definitely a bastardized version because, for one thing, they shot some extra footage and inserted Raymond Burr in as a main character. He did not belong there. It did not make any sense. But also, they cut out overt references to the atom bomb testing, the bombing of Nagasaki, the Bikini Island tests, etc., thereby eliminating the monster waking up because of our testing. So
yeah, it's the whole context of the film.
Yeah, it's our fault. This is a movie about consequences, and if you eliminate the reason for the consequences, it doesn't make as much sense. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting that this version exists because it's also a commentary on the time. But let's talk about the Japanese version instead.
Yeah.
Can you read the IMDb description for me?
IMDb says, after a dinosaur-like beast awoken from undersea hibernation by atom bomb testing ravages Tokyo, a scientist must decide if his similarly dangerous weapon should be used to destroy it. That's actually the part that got me about it. I did not expect any of that. And I really loved that that was part of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about like cautionary tales in this.
Yeah.
So Godzilla 1954 has a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and it has a 94% tomato meter and an 89% popcorn meter. That's actually really good. I feel like the nostalgia definitely plays into that. Okay, so I'm going to go through the synopsis like we usually do. And I recommend everybody try watching this movie at least once. It's on Max.
It's also on Criterion Channel. It's like the one place I didn't look.
That's on, yes, it's on Criterion. I didn't find out until later.
Yeah.
So it's worth a watch. Yes, it's cheesy, but my God, is it a point in time. When a Japanese freighter is demolished near Odo Island, another ship goes to investigate, only to be destroyed as well, with a few survivors left over. The fishermen report also that their catches are drying up. They're not able to catch as many fish. They suspect there's a predator in the ocean eating up all the fish. And I love that all the scenes shot on the ocean. There's a few real boats, but most of them are miniatures, and they're so well done, especially when they're showing the wreckage and the real fire effects and stuff. I really loved the shots of the miniatures. And
Yeah.
eventually they go to Odo Island, and a storm hits, and the resulting damage looks mysteriously like something crushing it from above. Again, great miniature work. Like, the materials look so good, and the houses splitting apart during the devastation. They're not revealing that it's Godzilla yet, but
Yeah.
it's just really cool how they did that.
I like it too. Yeah. It was really good. It did say in the credits, there was a thank you to the Japanese Coast Guard.
Oh, yeah,
So
they
I
probably
think-
helped. Yeah.
As many miniatures as there were, which I think if you're
There were real
looking
ships.
for it, you can definitely tell. But there
Yeah.
was definitely stuff shot on the ocean too.
Yeah, you can usually see a difference in scale when, things are being broken up and it's miniatures versus like a real coastline or whatever.
Yeah.
But they did a good job, especially for the time, making them match. The only thing in the beginning that didn't look realistic was they have a crashed helicopter on the island. The blades are kind of like bouncing. I'm like, it doesn't look like the right material, and it's kind of moving strangely. And I'm like, okay, that's obviously a miniature, but the details were still so good.
Yeah, it was good. There was one part where I saw on a ship they had a bunch of flags off the mast, but they were all flapping like as one little piece instead of waving,
that's
And so I was like,
precious.
"Oh, that's miniature."
That's great. They're like, this is as close as we can get it. Probably because they couldn't get any material to actually act like that on a small scale.
yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly.
So a paleontologist goes to investigate. I think his name is Yamane. He's testifying in a courtroom because he's just inspected the site. He mentions an example of snowman footprints in the mountains that haven't been solved. If this was the modern day, this would have been a setup to a backdoor pilot, okay? Of the mountain man of Japan. So I'm just saying. And my dog is whining. Why are you whining? Sweetheart, can you just get up here? Is that good? Should I just pet you while I do this? Oh my God, you're all wet. All right, so the paleontologist Yamane leads the investigation. He finds a trilobite in these radioactive footprints, and talks about how these creatures, these trilobites, were extinct or thought extinct for millennia.
I couldn't tell. Is it supposed to be alive?
I couldn't tell either.
Okay.
I was like, is that a live one? Is there other live things coming out from the sea? Or
Yeah.
is that supposed to be a fossil? I didn't understand that.
Because if it's a dead one, then they're probably extinct anyway. Like, why would you think they're not extinct anymore?
You could see
if
all
it's
his
not
little
alive?
legs and stuff. He looked a little
But it
too
didn't.
3D to be like a fossil. I didn't
Yeah,
understand that.
it definitely wasn't a fossil. Well, I don't think it was a fossil.
Yeah, I mean, he finally makes the summation that this creature that left these footprints must look like a dinosaur. And it feels like as soon as he said that, that's when he and the villagers witnessed this creature approaching from the other side of a mountain. And this is that iconic shot. It's the villagers running away. It's the mountainside or the hillside. And then this cute looking Godzilla puppet on the other side.
Yeah,
He's
and the eyes are a little
adorable.
goofy too.
Yeah,
It
and
is cute.
It's funny because there's obviously a guy in a suit, pioneered by this movie, is a guy in a suit who's stomping around as Godzilla, but they also used a puppet for certain scenes, and they're not the same. The puppet looks so goofy. His eyes are wonky, his face is a different shape, and his arms are too high up. So they didn't match those at all, which surprises me because they did such a good job making their miniatures so detailed.
Yeah.
The paleontologist theorizes that Godzilla was in some deep underwater cave and he was disturbed by H-bomb testing in the ocean. There's our Americans mention. There's a debate about warning the public of the impending monster's approach. So there's a lot of like, what should the government tell them? What should they let them know? So there's definitely some commentary to be had there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the military tries to destroy this monster with a fleet of frigates armed with depth charges. And, of course, Godzilla survives because it's far too early in the movie. And Yamane is like, the monster's unkillable. That's it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his daughter Emiko goes to the scientist Sarazawa.
Who seems like potentially could be somebody she might be betrothed to.
Well, no, this is the guy with the eye patch.
Yeah.
Oh.
But at one point, she's like, I have to go tell Serizawa about us.
Oh, she was
to her
betrothed.
fiancé.
She was betrothed to Ogata.
Oh, okay. Maybe I read too much into that.
It's okay. Maybe I didn't read enough into it.
Kind of seemed like there might have been a thing going on there.
Emiko and Ogata are a thing, and then he
right.
definitely proposes at the wrong time while a giant lizard is killing everybody. But anyway, Emiko goes to the scientist Serizawa's home to see his secret project. I don't know any reason why he asked her to go see it. I don't understand that. Why didn't you get the paleontologist there? Why didn't you get somebody else? I think he had a reporter there, but why is she there? I don't know.
Well, the reporter, he was trying to get rid of the reporter.
That's right. Yeah, he was like, get out of here. Anyway, lady, here's my secrets that you must take to your grave.
They must be like old family friends or something for him to trust her like that.
It's very possible that I missed a line somewhere, and that's one of the problems of reading subtitles, but I tried.
Well, also with the older films, oftentimes I feel like they don't fully explain stuff like that. So I don't remember them saying that he was a family friend, but it seemed like he was a family friend based on the way they interacted. But
yeah, that really could be.
I don't know. Maybe that's why I thought he might have been like a potential suitor.
I don't know. I couldn't figure out what the age difference was. Never mind. It's the 50s. Anyway, so he shows her off screen that he does something to this tank of fish, and she's horrified by what he shows her. But she agrees to keep this project a secret. Again, no idea why he told her. Now, Godzilla, they know he's going to come towards the mainland. They know he's coming towards civilization. Supposedly, he's motivated by food. I mean, me too, buddy. But he never takes a bite out of anybody, right? Maybe he just wants to be loved. Terrible. But yeah, you never see him eat anybody, right?
No, I don't remember seeing him eat anyone.
I think he just stomps. I think he chews on a lot of inanimate objects like power lines and boats and trains, but I don't think you ever see him go and eat any people. And I wonder if it was just too gruesome for the time.
It could be. I think there's also just maybe the focus of it wasn't that people were getting eaten. It was that the focus of the monster was destruction, just pure destruction.
Yeah, and maybe that's more the thought.
Maybe that's why they didn't really think to have him or her eating anyone.
Yeah, don't gender bias Godzilla, people. Godzilla just wants to be loved. So Godzilla attacks Shinagawa next, chomps on a train, like a frat boy who partied too hard, makes his way back to the ocean to chill.
Oh my God.
The next attempt to thwart Godzilla is when the Japanese Self-Defense Force creates a 98-foot-tall electrified fence down the coast. And they resemble power lines. I really thought they were just power lines that were electrified. But you could tell that all the wide shots with the power lines were stitched together. Because you know how there's like that natural bounce in old film? It kind of jitters up and down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Well, the power lines were jittering at a different rate than the film. So they were like moving differently from each other. So you could tell they were superimposed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Godzilla, of course, breaks through the fence. He's not done yet, people. And ravages Tokyo with a new trick. Atomic breath. Not even the tanks and fighter jets can stop him now.
No, that was wild too, because it like melted the towers along the power lines that they had.
Great effects, honestly.
Yeah.
And the atomic breath in this early movie is shown. It looks like a mist, like a glowy mist that shoots out of him and then slowly like irradiates and melts everything. And eventually they do show his back spikes kind of glow.
Yeah.
Which in those days they probably had to painstakingly paint every frame in order to do that. Yeah. Lots of work.
Well, it worked. It looked cool.
It looked cool. It still looks cool. I don't know when this happens, but Ogata thinks it's a fine time to ask Emiko's father for her hand in marriage while a lizard is attacking Tokyo.
Just like a man.
Such a man. It was like, dude, read the room.
Oh, there's a huge monster on the loose. Time for us to get engaged.
So about our relationship. Emiko finally decides to give up Serizawa's secret. She tells her fiancé, Ogata, about his oxygen destroyer, a substance that asphyxiates and then dissolves living creatures in water. They flash back to him in the lab where he put this tablet into the fish tank and it bubbles and the fish die and then they turn into bones, which is hilarious.
Why did he have to use so many fish to he used
everything
a
about
huge tank full of fish to
Everything about it was too extra for me. I don't know.
He could have just killed one fish to
How do you destroy the oxygen and then all their flesh disappears? I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. But it's more dramatic with bones. It's harder to show someone choking, I guess.
Them?
I don't know. There's a lot happening in there.
If it destroys oxygen, there's oxygen in there. Okay.
I think that's what they tried to say, is that it somehow liquefied them, but sure. Anyway, I guess we just like bones. Serizawa says he does not want to use this weapon. He's like, adding another terrifying weapon to humanity's arsenal is something I won't allow.
Yes.
He's going to change his tune, don't worry. In the aftermath, we see a series of montages of triage and hospital wings, maimed, dead, and those dying of radiation poisoning. It's all displayed in all this tragedy. So in the space of time of a sad montage over people in a hospital, he changes his tune. But he says, this will be the first and last time I allow the oxygen destroyer to be used. He's very poignant about that.
Because he can see how badly this monster needs to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, because the nuclear bombs are so fresh in not only his mind, but everyone's mind and in the history of Japan, he can't bring himself to allow...
He doesn't want what he created to become a weapon. Sort of like Einstein with the atom bomb. He knew it was a bad idea right away. He's like, oh no. That horrible sinking feeling when you created something that could have been good, but now will be used for an evil purpose.
Yeah.
So it's direct commentary on that. And I think it's very smart of them to put that in there.
Me too.
There was definitely like an evil for the greater good situation going on in this moment. But yeah, so Ogata and Serizawa travel by Navy ship to Tokyo Bay. Serizawa goes underwater with the weapon, and he like slices his own line so he can't go back up to the surface and he doesn't get any more oxygen. And that's also so his secret will never come out. He never wants this used again. He burned his notes so that no one could ever replicate this weapon he created. And he also literally sinks with it to the bottom of the ocean. Anyway, they use the weapon. Godzilla succumbs to the oxygen destroyer, shrieks dramatically out of the water, and then sinks and dissolves into bones.
Loved seeing the little Godzilla skeleton at the bottom of the ocean.
It was pretty cool. It all reminded me of Jaws, the first Jaws movie, when they blow up the shark and you see him slowly sinking to the bottom.
Oh,
I know
it's been too long since I've seen that one, but I love that movie.
Okay, we'll circle back to that someday.
Well, there are like 17 of them.
Yeah, but Jaws 3D exists and it's terrible.
I know, I've seen it.
So yeah, it reminded me of Jaws, which I know came afterward, but I saw Jaws first. But I think the Jaws scene is playing on that classic Godzilla scene.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Very easily.
The movie ends with one of the professors. I don't know if I attributed it correctly to Tanabe. It might actually be the paleontologist. I don't remember. But this character says, if nuclear testing continues, then someday, somewhere in the world, another Godzilla will appear, which is definitely a cautionary tale. Also a great setup for a sequel.
Yeah. I mean, I almost felt like he could have just been, I mean, he wasn't looking directly into the camera, but he
felt
was
like it's directed at us.
It was,
just off camera, right? Like it felt like he was saying it to the people in the room, but he was basically saying it to the audience. It felt very poignant.
Thank you. Yes. I guess I'm not doing great with words today.
You're doing amazing. You're doing great.
But yeah, it definitely felt like he was addressing me directly when I was watching it.
Yeah. Like, don't do this. Okay, I won't.
Yeah, I won't create another atom bomb.
I know I won't. But I went to art school, so I don't have the skills.
Same. I barely passed colors, y'all.
Hey, I'm still on yellow. Just give me a little time, okay? I'm figuring it out. Some fun trivia. Several characters in this film refer to the Jurassic period as being 2 million years ago. This is only off by 143.5 million years.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. And also, I thought the Jurassic period was not actually when the dinosaurs were alive. Is that right?
I think they were spread out. I think most of the ones we think of are from the Cretaceous period, and that's why Jurassic Park is so inaccurate for many reasons. But the fact that a lot of those dinosaurs were in the Cretaceous.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll get a deep dive into dinosaurs one of these days. I love dinosaurs.
Cretaceous Park isn't exactly a name that rolls off the tongue like Jurassic Park, so I get why they might have fudged it just for the way it sounds.
Who wrote that book? I don't remember.
Michael Crichton.
Crichton, yeah. He wrote the original book. He called it Jurassic Park, so the misbranding started then. It's your fault. Feel bad. I'm just kidding. I love those movies. Anyway,
It's on you, Michael.
it's on you. I wanted to mention that Godzilla still has those footstep sounds even when he's underwater, which makes no sense. Is he walking on the bottom of the ocean? I don't think so.
Well, at some points he might be, right?
He swims, I think. Or actually, well, he in this movie kind of looks like he's walking in the water. It's confusing. None of the height proportions are correct. Like, they're all off. And the difference between the model and the guy in the suit are very off. And, like, when Godzilla's in scenes with people, the perspective is off. When he's in the distance, he looks a certain size. But then when he goes to chomp those reporters on that one tower, he's definitely a different size compared to them.
Yes, like all of these things you're pointing out are true. And it could take you out of it. But for some reason, I was, I guess, just in the right headspace. I was along for the ride the whole time.
Oh, I was in. I loved the little fighter planes with the wires that were obviously holding them up, the little tiny rockets that were flying off of them that bounce off the sky backdrop behind Godzilla. You can see that. I don't care. It's adorable. I wanted to, because I had to look this up. I was so curious how they made Godzilla's roar, because it's very similar throughout all the movies that I can tell. It was created using a leather glove coated in pine tar resin, stroking a double bass, like the strings of a double bass. And that's how they created the sound.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And also makes sense.
Yeah, because they tested like a bunch of animal sounds and tweaking them, and nothing sounded right. And then Japanese composer Akira Ifukube came up with this process. I don't know what the trial and error situation was, but eventually they came up with that, and it's iconic. I already gushed about the miniatures, but I did want to talk about some camera work in this movie, and then I'll be done with this one so we can move on to the next one.
Finally.
I know.
When's it my turn?
Do you remember there was a scene with Emiko and Ogata? A lot of their scenes just play out in wides and 2 shots and 3 shots so that the characters are just talking at each other. They don't do a lot of over the shoulders in these days. They don't do a lot of close-ups. The few close-ups you get is when someone's directly reacting to Godzilla or they're saying a really poignant line. But other than that, they're very stingy with the close-ups. So in this particular scene, there's a ton of 2 shots, wides, but it's all accomplished in this one shot. It's all from the actors blocking that the shot changes. At one point, you see them standing at a desk. They're kind of 50-50. Then the woman is facing us. Then they walk towards the door. Then the man is facing us. So it's interesting that they squeezed in 3 or 4 shot types within that single shot, which just made me say, make use of your sets in space, people. Efficiency.
Yeah, I think that can add dynamics, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to keep in mind for films now, because a lot of people, when they're shooting even their short films, are overshooting them. They're shooting way too much coverage. They're shooting way too much, and they don't know what they actually want the edit to look like. When you had to shoot back in these days, probably like they're being efficient also because they're using film and it's expensive. Use the space. Have them do some interesting blocking that creates interesting shots within shots. That's a good lesson to take.
That's definitely something to play with and put in your toolkit.
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of weird jump cuts and stuff, but we'll just say they ran out of time for coverage or something.
So now let's talk about Godzilla -1 from December of 2023. It is rated PG-13, directed by Takashi Yamazaki, who I have heard is often referred to as the James Cameron of Japan. Our IMDb rating was 7.7 out of 10. Pretty good rating. Bridget, will you read the IMDb description for us for Godzilla -1?
Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster, baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb.
Our Rotten Tomatoes Metascore is 99%. That is our critic score.
Wow.
Rotten Tomatoes Popcorn Meter, which is the audience score, is 98%.
I love it.
This is wild.
I'm so proud of this movie.
Me too. Honestly, as me, I have never, on the surface, been very intrigued by monster films like this.
Mm-hmm.
I never would shit on it, but I also never really felt motivated to watch any of them. So I don't remember if I've ever actually seen a Godzilla film before now. I am glad that you assigned me this one.
I had a feeling.
I had a feeling too, because you seemed really confident, and I feel like usually you know
I felt it.
if I'm going to like something or not.
I was excited to show you this movie.
But also something with a 99 and a 98% Rotten Tomatoes set of scores. I feel like I'm at least going to appreciate it, right? Like, let's talk about the title, Godzilla -1.
Ooh, yeah. Tell me what that means.
So the title refers to Japan being leveled to 0 by World War II and then pushed into the negative by Godzilla.
Oh, dang.
And there was an original tagline for this film, post-war Japan from 0 to minus.
Ooh.
I think there's also a layer of here is a prequel to the original Godzilla. So I think that -1 also refers to it being set previously to the original Godzilla movie.
I almost think it's a remake because they talk about Odo Island and, it feels like it's set at the same time as the original movie, doesn't it?
They never say in the original when it's set.
Yeah, because our main character, Koichi, is a failed kamikaze pilot. He comes back to shame from some people.
It seems like he just wanted to live. I think considering what was going on, it's pretty understandable.
Right, but with that comes multiple levels of guilt because he left his squadron or whatever.
Yeah.
He shows up on the repair island, and then that's when our first attack happens. And he, again, is one of the only survivors and is, again, blamed because he failed to act.
Right, and he gets not brutally called out, but he gets called out pretty quickly for bringing a plane in for repairs.
That's not shot up.
That's not damaged.
Yeah.
Because Tachibana, who is presumably the head mechanic there, he has his crew go over the plane and he walks over to where Shikishima or Koichi is sitting, waiting. And he says, I can't believe you were able to land this bucket of bolts on our landing strip.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, but my mechanics can't find one thing wrong with your plane.
Oof.
And he doesn't go really any farther than that in
It's
verbally.
Insinuated. It's enough that the kid knows he's been found out.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a big thing about pride. He was supposed to do this for his country, and he didn't. And then it's like, well, now the war is over. I shouldn't have done it anyway. But there's still some shame, like when he comes back home, and people are like, wait, weren't you a kamikaze pilot? Why are you back? How dare you?
Absolutely. He walks away from Tachibana after he says this.
Mm-hmm.
And another mechanic walks up to where he's sitting later on, and he says, I don't blame you. I'm on your side.
Yeah, which is good
Why
for him to hear.
should we? Yeah, I think it's good for him to hear, but it's also still pretty early in his story arc for him to really fully absorb it. But the mechanic says something interesting, which is, why should we be expected to die honorably when we know what's coming?
Right.
Which he doesn't say, but it's surrender.
Yeah.
Or loss of the war. And later that evening, Godzilla shows up and almost all of the mechanics get murdered.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty brutal. They realize that these small guns that they have are not going to work. And they tell him, get in your fighter plane and use your 20 millimeter gun because nothing survives a 20 millimeter gun. They have no idea yet how resilient this monster is.
Yeah, they don't know. But anyway, he gets to his plane and he freezes.
Mm-hmm.
He can't manage to shoot at the monster.
Now, keep in mind, Godzilla is like feet away from him at this point. It's kind of close.
Yeah.
Of course he froze.
Mm-hmm.
And then he misses his chance.
This whole massacre happens on Odo Island. The only survivors are Shikishima and Tachibana.
Mm-hmm.
And on the boat, when they're going back to mainland Japan, Tachibana gives Shikishima a whole packet of photos from the mechanics of their loved ones.
Yeah.
Some of them are blood-stained.
It's gnarly.
You can tell that Shikishima is horrified because as soon as he realizes what the package is, he closes it back up and hides it into his blanket that he's, wrapped in.
I felt for him.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he goes back to where his parents lived. They're gone, perished in air raids.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his neighbors immediately is like, you were a kamikaze pilot. Again, shaming him. Yeah, you've dishonored your family. Her children have passed away as well, also in the air raids.
So sad. And I guess it's like seeing someone who shouldn't have come back and be okay. That must have really rubbed her the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, and she looks like she's still in the thick of it. Like everything is rubble at that point. There's no there's no ease that you can see around her or him in this place. It's all just absolutely brutal destruction.
These people are picking through the remnants of their lives, and they're having to live in the rubble. They have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's why we should watch movies from other cultures, because we need to understand the repercussions of history.
Absolutely. So with this movie starting in 1945, this is the very beginning of post-war Japan. I was wanting to read up on the Japanese sentiment and how people were feeling and the culture and the fear that people were going through. All I could really find in the brief-ish amount of time that I had to dive into it was the logistical, like, here's the timeline of what happened when.
Oh, okay.
So in 1945, the U.S. occupied Japan, and they stayed there till 1952.
Oh, dear. Okay, yeah.
Just to give a little bit of backstory on this time period. During this 7-year period of time, 7-ish year period of time, this is when Japan got an infusion of American culture, and they got some American political things like shot into their system as they got a new form of government set up. And also, this is a time when Japanese culture started getting exported to other parts of the world.
Right.
Because of the people who were coming in and visiting and leaving, and a lot of them were Americans. So people started being exposed to manga and anime and that sort of thing. Eventually, not in 1945, the monster movies, the kaiju films.
Yay.
So, and Godzilla is considered to be the first kaiju film. I read that it was inspired in part by King Kong, so that's why I was saying I think you're right.
I made a good guess.
You made a good guess. You just like came up with that? That's really
I did.
smart.
Cool, because the name was gorilla whale put together. And I'm like, if they said gorilla, that's a very specific animal. Was it inspired by King Kong? So yeah.
You're smart.
I did it.
All right, let's get back into the plot, I guess. He's out in the marketplace having some lunch one day, and this woman who is being chased for being a thief runs by. He kind of steps in her way, presumably to kind of help, but he's not trying really hard to stop her or grab her or anything. She stops right in front of him, and she just goes, please, and gives him the baby she's carrying.
Yep.
And then runs off and continues to get chased.
Right.
He doesn't know what to do, but he's not going to leave a baby all alone. So he sits and waits for this woman to come back. Eventually he gives up and he starts walking back to his house, I guess, through an alley, and she finds him.
Well, what happens right before that is he stops and thinks about it. He puts the baby down on the bench and starts walking away like, not my baby, not my problem. And then he has a plight of conscience, and he goes and grabs the baby and starts walking back with the baby.
Thank you. I forgot that.
I know. I think it was very important about his character. The guilt got him.
Yet again.
The humanity, really, but...
Yeah. So she finds him in the alleyway on his way back to his house. He gives her the baby, and she's like, thanks. Why didn't you leave the baby? And he was like, I'm not going to leave a baby alone. I feel like I'm doing drunk history, but like this movie plot, even though I'm not drunk at all.
Erica just got over being sick for a few days, so... It's our version.
That's why this is my gross episode.
It's a gross episode.
So anyway, she ends up following him to his house and staying with them. But yes, so Noriko and Akiko stay with him. It's never really fully discussed. I think she just kind of moves in, and
it just happens.
At this point in time, it kind of just happens. But I feel like if you're in this scenario where everything around you is rubble, how do you tell someone to leave? You know, I mean,
yeah, he tries. He's just like, no, you can't sleep here. And then that becomes like, oh, well, now they just stay.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting. I think he feels like he can't enforce it. He's like, I can't just kick these people out there, you know?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they can stay the night. And staying the night ends up being, what, the next 10 years?
At least. Well, eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
This is December of 1945 when she goes home with him and stays there. Sumiko, the neighbor who had shamed him originally, ends up giving them some advice on how to take care of the baby. She gives them some of her prized white rice to make gruel with for the child, and tells them that it is not for them because adults can survive on anything.
Right. She was very pointed about that.
Yeah.
But it was sort of that tough love situation.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't... Yeah, I don't think she was trying to be mean. I think she was trying to be stern.
Honestly, she was kind of mellowing out by this point and kind of warming up to them again.
Yeah. So fast forward to March of 1946. And now it is time for Shikishima to go find a job. And he goes out and finds the most well-paying job that he can, that he's qualified for. That job happens to be decommissioning mines in the ocean.
Which is a dangerous job.
Comes with risk for sure. And Noriko and he have a whole discussion about that. And he seems like pretty determined to take the job because he wants to make sure that Akiko has what she needs to survive. And I think there's that guilt thing coming into play where he's wanting to make sure that they're okay. He's doing that at the expense of himself to a certain extent. Although he does say just because it's risky does not mean I'm going to die. And he ends up joining a crew on a boat with an ex-naval weapons developer named Noda, or they call him Doc. A young man with very little life experience, Mizushima, who they call Kid, and who seems to be an experienced sailor. He's the captain of the ship, and they call him Captain. Brilliant, I know. So he ends up proving himself pretty useful on the ship because he's good with the gun that's on the boat that they use to explode the mines once they cut them free of the chains that they're attached to.
Right. It's the only safe way for them to dispose of these things.
Yeah, which is wild. I kept thinking, like, it seems also really destructive to, like, explode a whole bunch of mines and just, like, let it just fall into the ocean and be there.
Yeah, it was
but I don't have better ideas either.
Yeah, we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want people to die.
We didn't make them so that they could be decommissioned. We made them so they would explode.
Exactly.
They made them to explode.
Right. Everyone finds him useful for that purpose because he's a jet fighter and he's used to having to shoot with movement.
In this case, they're on the ocean, so the motion of the ocean is rocking the boat around and moving the target. Whoa, got saucy in here. You know what I mean? The boat's moving. This thing he's trying to shoot at is moving. He has experience because he's used to being in a plane that's moving, shooting at other planes that are moving.
So yeah, around this time also he's having nightmares about Godzilla and the Odo massacre and the men that he failed to save. According to his mind, he failed to save them.
Right.
Even though even a 20mm gun does not seem like it would do anything considering what they had to do to get rid of this monster.
Really.
So fast forward to July of 1946, we see at the bottom of the ocean some kind of nuclear explosion and a monster being reawoken.
Mm-hmm.
The whole crew, his boat crew, they come over to his house for dinner and they find out that Noriko and Shikishima are not married and the kid's not related to either of them.
So it's a very interesting hodgepodge little family.
Yeah. They're not dicks about it or anything, but they seem like surprised. And I get in that time in Japan that could be considered at the very least unconventional.
For sure. And it's
interesting, scandalous.
Well, I mean, it probably was, but these guys were pretty chill. But the little baby does say something about him being her dad or something like that. And he's like, again, I told you I'm not your dad. And everybody at the table is like, how dare you?
Yeah.
That was awful. Like,
that's
dude.
True.
But meanwhile, he feels very protective and wants to provide for her. So in a sense, he is acting as her dad, but doesn't want the title yet. Maybe he feels like he didn't earn it.
Probably.
But don't be too mean to that little baby. She's just a toddler. Oh.
I mean, functionally, he is her father at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. This happens soon after Noriko finds a job for herself in Ginza, which I'm assuming is like the next town over, or maybe it's like the more cityfied part of where they live.
Yeah, she gets there by train in any case.
And she tells him, you have to be able to find a wife, so I can't be here, forever. And Shikishima doesn't want to find a wife, but he doesn't know how to tell her yet that he wants her. Because I think he still doesn't think he deserves her because of his shameful guilt feelings.
Yeah, he feels like he doesn't deserve to even be alive, it seems. He's still, like, harping on it.
Mm-hmm. A couple of U.S. ships soon after are destroyed by a massive undersea organism. Ooh, mysterious.
Ooh.
Leaving radioactivity in its wake, and the creature is on a trajectory toward the Japanese archipelago. General MacArthur, concerned about Soviet tensions and recent movements, says he can't help Japan but urges them to start reinforcing their security forces. So, Japan's on their own. The Soviets aren't going to help. The U.S. isn't helping. And there's this mysterious thing coming towards the shore. This was July of 1946, and now we're cutting forward to May of 1947 to the minesweeper Shikishima's crew. They call their boat the Minesweeper.
Makes sense.
I liked it.
I'm terrible at that game.
I really liked it. I don't think I was ever super good at it, but I did like it. Anyway, so Minesweeper. We're not talking about the video game this time. So this is the crew's first encounter with Godzilla directly, except for Shikishima, obviously.
Yeah.
The boat is out stalling for time, trying to keep an eye out for the monster and keep it at bay.
But one of them made
Literally.
a good point. He's like, we have a tiny little wooden boat. What the heck are we going to do against this giant monster? We're just here to feed it.
Yes, and they're out there with their buddy boat, right? Like,
Yeah.
they've been doing this mine
Yeah, like they...
decommissioning work with a partner boat.
Yeah, that's how they cut it. They have a line that's strung between the two boats, and that's how they cut the lines to release the... What are they called? Mines. I'm here. I'm all here.
Well, and it's when they are communicating with that other boat, at this point, the other boat says something snarky, like...
Ooh.
But I can't remember what it is that they said now. But of course, the next thing that they know, that boat gets absolutely just like
Yeah.
demolished by Godzilla. So it was some irony there.
Yeah.
The crew watch this other boat get destroyed, and they're absolutely horrified. And the captain's like, okay, never mind. Like, we need to get out of here. This isn't okay. And despite that feeling, honestly, I feel like they did a pretty good job of dealing with the monster. So the monster starts following them. You can see the spines coming through,
It's
like
such
the
a
shark
great
fin.
shot. It's a great shot.
It was really good, yeah.
Ooh.
And they have two mines on board that they are going to reel out and get the monster with. So the first one they reel out and it hits the spines and they're like, okay, it's time. And so they shoot the thing and it explodes. It barely does any damage to the monster. And you see, I'm not sure if this is 100% what was intended, but to me it seemed like every time Godzilla got hit by something or damaged by something, when it regenerated, it got bigger.
Ooh, that
Because
could be.
I feel like when they're on Odo Island, it's like,
It's not as big.
yeah,
He
it's
definitely got bigger after however many years it was that passed.
yeah. So I feel like
So-
maybe that's part of the nuclear thing where it's like radiation and there's like regenerative growth and
Which poses a problem in itself,
Yes.
making it harder and harder to kill.
maybe when it grows, like you see the spines shoot out a little farther on its back,
Ooh, yeah, that could be.
which is neat.
It gives me something to look forward to on a third watch.
The first mine that they release does nothing, pretty much nothing. They see it regenerate quickly. The second one, they manage to get into its mouth.
Yeah.
Doesn't explode automatically with the switch that they have.
The switch got like
the fuse.
messed up.
Yeah, the fuse line got cut on the second one that got into his mouth. So they don't have a way to set it off.
Right.
So Shikishima gets up onto where the gun is for the ship, and he shoots the mine inside the monster's mouth, and it makes a much bigger impact, though it still regenerates.
Oh, it looks great though at first. His whole mouth gets blown open and a whole chunk gets pulled out, and he kind of slumps sideways in the water, and they're like celebrating for a second, and then they see it all grow back.
And then suddenly the boat that they've been waiting for arrives and starts firing.
Just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time. It's one of those moments where you're like, oh, thank God. Like, but the ship doesn't really do much either. I feel like eventually the ship gets it to go away, but it's not killing it.
It did some damage, but Godzilla just kind of nopes out of there and leaves to smash another day.
Okay, yeah. So this is where we find out, because of the closeness of the blast from the mine that was in Godzilla's mouth, a couple of them get injured. Kid gets his arm injured somehow.
Well, the boat gets blasted apart in the back. You can see all the wooden boards and stuff are all torn up.
Yeah.
They got hit by part of the blast.
And Shikishima gets concussed and his head is bleeding. He gets taken to the hospital, finally confesses after he comes out of the hospital and goes home to Noriko that he abandoned his station as a kamikaze pilot, and he tells her about Odo Island. She tries to console him by saying everyone who survived the war was meant to live, but it is of little consolation to him.
Oh, it's a good line, though. Damn, girl.
I know it was. And he wonders if he can build a new life for himself. He's not sure yet.
The remaining piece of this movie will teach him otherwise.
And I think that that's part of the metaphor too, right? It's like he kind of represents the entirety of Japan.
Yeah,
I
and
think
trying to
through this.
heal after the war. I definitely see that in him.
Yeah. So the next thing that happens is Noriko is on her way home from work in Ginza, and Shikishima is at home with Akiko, and he hears a radio report that Godzilla has come ashore in Ginza. And the train she's on gets destroyed by the monster, though she does manage to escape, leaping out of the train car into a body of water.
She's a badass.
Yeah. I don't know how. Yeah, it was very nerve-wracking, but they don't paint her as a badass, but
she's one of the only ones who didn't just fall out of the train car. She was actually able to grab onto stuff and survive for a little longer.
Yes.
And wait until the train car was low enough to the water in the river or canal or whatever that she could drop out of it.
Yeah.
But she almost gets creamed by the train car dropping on top of her at that point too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was watching it. I was like, girl, you better be careful and start swimming.
Get to swimming.
You don't want that thing to land on you. That'll ruin everything that you just survived. So she escapes the train car and then is on the street trying to get out. And she kind of falls over at one point, and suddenly Shikishima, he has found her in this moment. And he's like, hey, come on. And he picks her up and they start running. At this point, the monster, Godzilla, he releases the spray.
Yeah, the
atomic
the
spray.
new version of the atomic blast, right?
Yeah,
it looks more like
that he spits.
I thought that was the atomic breath thing, right? Like it's
more
of like a laser beam at this point, and it makes things explode.
I don't know. I think it still counts as atomic breath. I mean, it's not super.
Well, he's not even looking in their direction. He releases this atomic breath. It causes an explosion far away, but it's so big that cloud just comes down the streets towards them, and it causes like constant demolition on its way.
Oh,
it's a big blast radius.
I thought that's what it was, is that, yeah, he spit this atomic breath and it caused an explosion, and the explosion is what just like started leveling everything.
I think we're both
so
saying
everyone's
the same thing.
running.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's just debris flying everywhere. Buildings are caving in. Like it's a big blast.
Yes. And as that blast, it looks like an atomic blast.
Yeah.
And as it approaches, Noriko shoves Shikishima into a tiny alleyway.
Oh my goodness.
Saving his life from this destruction, and she gets swept away in it.
Oh, it's so dramatic. I love it.
It's so upsetting.
It's poetic and it's so upsetting at the same time.
Yeah. And so after he comes to and he realizes what's going on, he's like, no, obviously like, no.
Yeah, he is wrecked.
Yeah. And then the nuclear rain starts. That's what I'm assuming that is.
Well, I'm assuming it's it's got to be irradiated because everything's irradiated. And there's this nasty black soot that's hitting, it's raining and it's turning black as it hits them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so gross.
It is gross.
I'm just thinking about all the radiation and all of this. Like everybody's contaminated at this point.
Yeah. And do you feel like, I kept thinking like it would be a whole other layer to add to like what radiation poisoning does to people.
Yeah.
I feel like they sort of glossed over that part, but it makes sense to me that they wouldn't add it in because the movie's already 2 hours long.
Yeah.
They're already saying so much about this history and these events, the Japanese people dealing with it, that I feel like that's
enough.
like it would be maybe overly complicating.
I think they do end up roping off an area that they say is heavily irradiated, but that's as far as they really go on that. And I think some people's injuries are like radiation burns and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And they do show some people with Geiger counters.
Yes.
Testing certain things and certain people.
And you hear it
at
going
different
off.
points.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, they do touch on it for sure, but I feel personally fine that they don't really heavily involve it to the point where it would be super realistic.
We're almost at the end. Do you want to just kind of wrap it up? Because the whole ending, you can probably wrap up pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. So Noda, the doctor, who kept distracting me with his hair.
Right?
Oh my God. If I could
love his
only have
look.
hair like that.
Great hair.
Who's like this curls.
He's such a delight to look at. He seems so positive.
He's so cute. Yeah, I was jealous of the curls. The gray with the white streaks and
Right.
oh my God. Okay, anyway.
Icon.
Yeah. Jealous. I'm jealous.
Wait, what does he say now?
He invites Shikishima to participate in a citizen-led meeting to come up with a plan to destroy Godzilla
Right.
and save Japan. Now, I had to think about this for a minute. Maybe it's obvious to other folks, but all of the military in Japan has been decommissioned. Noda, during the meeting, Shikishima does go to the meeting, and Noda does a presentation where they think if they surround the monster with Freon gas cylinders, it'll cause him to sink to the ocean floor very quickly to where the pressure would crush it.
Mm-hmm.
At least they hope so.
Right.
The second part of the plan, in case that doesn't work, is to quickly raise the monster back up to the surface of the ocean. And Noda was saying that any ocean-born creature, just because they're born in the ocean doesn't mean they can withstand that kind of pressure change. Anyway, this is the plan. Everyone ends up agreeing to it. I wanted to touch a little bit on the context of this, because why is it just a bunch of citizens coming together to figure out this enormous problem? But the Japanese government didn't really exist at this point. Their military certainly didn't exist. All their planes had been decommissioned. All their weapons had been taken away. I don't know exactly the logistics of that, but
post-war, and they were the ones who weren't the victors. So yeah, they're definitely at a disadvantage.
they were being occupied by the United States at this point. So they didn't have the United States. General MacArthur had said, "You're on your own."
Oof.
Which I read a little bit about. There were some decisions that he made in sort of reestablishing the Japanese government that actually really helped Japan become a world power again.
Okay.
Apparently, I don't know all the details, but
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what the other side of the world says about the same history, being that we have such differing tellings of stories.
Yeah, that's
of
a
history.
good point. Yeah, because
but
I'm sure they weren't all good decisions,
right?
According to Japan.
I mean, at the very least, after the war, Japan did become a world power and did modernize incredibly fast and exceeded in many categories.
Yeah,
producing electronics and things for one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a testament to, the human spirit and the resilience that we have. Okay, so everybody sets to work. Basically, they have a few days. I think Noda says that he'll expect the monster back within about 10 days. Shikishima asks Noda to find him a fighter plane, which, of course, all of them have been decommissioned.
Right.
But Noda does manage to get his hands on one called the Shinden, which is, I guess, one that they were developing toward the end of the war.
I was going to say, there was something wrong with it, right?
Repaired, yes. So they don't know if it'll fly. Shikishima goes in search of Tachibana, right, from Odo Island, the mechanic. He's like, I know who can do this.
Right. Good callback.
And he sends a bunch of letters out blaming Tachibana for the Odo massacre.
Ooh.
Because he knows that is the fastest way to get Tachibana to find him.
Oh, that's so petty.
Oh, yeah. So that's how he gets a shiner and another concussion.
Dang.
When Tachibana shows up and punches him in the face for blaming him for that.
Oh.
But anyway, he finally talks Tachibana into, fixing the plane so that they can get rid of this monster. So Tachibana is doing everything he can to fix the plane and get it ready for the mission. Shikishima says, if I fly this plane into the mouth of the monster, I know it'll kill it. He feels determined.
And it's also a kamikaze thing to do.
And it's also a kamikaze thing to do.
Oof.
And it turns out Tachibana has had a change of heart about it, but you don't find that out immediately. So they enact the plan, right? The monster shows up a little bit early and they're like, oh shit. And they get in the boats, the 4 boats that they do have.
Yeah.
And they wrap the monster with these Freon cylinders and boom, they sink it. Just at the right moment. They're measuring. He goes all the way down past 1,500 meters, which I think was the bottom of the trench where they...
Yeah, it's like crushing depth or something.
Yes. They're not sure. They can't see, so they're not sure if the monster got crushed by the pressure. So they deploy the inflatable...
Whoa! That was exciting.
Oh, my God! You guys. Oh, my God.
Okay, this is staying in.
I just tried to throw my microphone across the room.
It was great.
Okay.
Dramatic.
That was, that's what I bring is the drama. So then they inflate the inflatable things to lift him back up to the surface to hopefully depressurize it. Captain tells the kid he can't come along on the mission. And he tells him, and this is another poignant moment for like the message behind the film. He says, not having been to war is also something to be proud of.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like they're dealing with all of this survivor's guilt and like all of this ravagement that they've been through, and they want their future generations to not have to deal with this kind of thing.
Right.
Like they don't want people to go through this. They know how terrible it is. So anyway, the kid gets left behind, but he's mad about it. And when they are trying to bring Godzilla back up to the surface of the water, the two boats that they have attached to him aren't powerful enough to lift him quickly out of the depths. As the towers that are holding the crane towers on the boats are like bending over and failing at their jobs, suddenly the kid shows up with a whole bunch of tugboats, and the tugboats pull the destroyers. So then Godzilla comes up out of the water and they see the damage that's happened.
Oh, it was a great moment. That was definitely his hero moment.
Yeah. So the kid gets a piece of the action after all.
Yeah, he wanted it.
He did. And he
helped.
Yeah, he wanted to help.
He
wanted to be a
legitimately
part
helped.
of it.
Yeah. Ooh.
And when you see Godzilla come up out of the water, you can tell it's very damaged.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not dead. But it's got, it's discolored. You can tell there's like something weird happening with its skin, and did have an effect. But it regenerates just like it has every other time. Fortunately, Shikishima is still in his plane because he had to lure it into the bay to begin with his plane, right? So he was like kind of shooting at it and like luring it back out into the water. He does manage to fly. I really hate giving away the end of this. I know I always say that I don't care about spoilers, and
Okay. This is your warning.
Maintain that position.
Right.
But I also really enjoyed that I didn't know what was going to happen. So I hope if you're listening to this that you've already seen it.
If you really don't want to be spoiled and you haven't seen it, you can pause the episode and come back to it later.
Yes. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But also, even if you do know, I'm sure it's still going to be enjoyable.
I think so, yeah. But you're right. I don't like to ruin things either.
It was such a...
Right.
Like,
I love it. She just went through a gamut of emotions in front of me.
I had a journey. I was on a journey with this film. I was so into it.
So proud.
Maybe I should just be an actor. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, that'd be terrible. I'd hate that.
People are staring at me. Why? It's your job.
I can only deal with that if I have an instrument in my hand. So Shikishima sees what's happening. He aims. He flies his plane straight into the monster's mouth. And the next thing you know, the monster's head explodes. Godzilla is falling apart into the ocean. Everyone is speechless. Everyone who is watching this, who's on the boats. The monster is breaking apart and falling into the ocean. All of a sudden, Noda sees the parachute open.
Yay.
and then it cuts to a scene of Tachibana explaining the last feature of the plane to him, that there's an ejection lever added in.
Right. Whereas before it's assumed he's going to fly in and that's it. He can't escape from this.
Right. One of the things that they mention at one point, I think it was during the citizens meeting, was here are all these things like that we've been through. And it wasn't just the war. It was that we had poor supply lines. So a lot of people died of starvation. It's that kamikaze planes weren't built with ejection seats.
Yeah, they never expected them to survive.
Exactly. And there's a whole list. I can't remember it. But,
right.
It's all these things that where Japan was failing their own people through the war. So I think it's interesting this whole thing isn't just about what the Americans did and what the Allies did. It's about how Japan failed their own people as well.
Ooh.
Although in a smaller way.
We have hindsight, right?
Right.
There's been enough time that they don't feel like they have to be so pro their own history. They're like aware of their own pitfalls in their own history. And that's part of the commentary. Whereas you see that in some of our movies too. Like Hacksaw Ridge. I mean, it's about a character who doesn't want to be a soldier but wants to help people. He's a medic. It's actually a really nice movie. I don't like war movies. put it on the list.
Yeah, I don't normally care for wartime movies that much either.
I don't either. I very sparingly watch them. I did watch Zero Dark 30. I watched it once. It was a lot. And I'm like, I'm glad I saw that. And now I don't need to see it again.
Yeah. I saw Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, that one's got some scenes in it that are really intense.
It's a really intense movie. It's a good movie, but it is really intense. And it's hard to watch.
Some of these, they serve a purpose. Some of them are just more like propaganda, I think, but
sure,
some fall into that camp, but some are actually telling us a story and telling us, maybe some commentary about the human condition or learning our mistakes, and I think that's very valid.
Yeah, and I wonder I'd be curious to know how many, like what the proportion of wartime films that get made are that are funded by our military.
There's a good number of them. There are some that are more overt, like there was like a Navy SEALs movie and some others. I'm not a good expert on this field, but then other weird ones, like I think Transformers got funding from the military or help from the military with some military, because they're somehow in the movie.
Okay.
There's some random ass stuff about that. Anyway, I'm done. I'm done with that topic.
So finally we find that he's got the ejection seat. Tachibana tells him, you need to live. We've had enough. He doesn't say we have had enough, but like basically he's like, there's no reason for you to die here. Like, let's all live through this. And I think at one point Noda even says like, we're not trying to sacrifice lives here. Like we want everyone to live through this for the future.
Wow.
In the meeting too, if I'm remembering right. So they've got this whole shift from, die honorably for your country to no, let's survive together.
Yeah, I like that message.
Yeah. So then what happens? There's one more piece to this story, and that is that this whole time we've thought that Noriko is dead, right? She got blasted away in Ginza. While this mission is happening, Sumiko, the neighbor, has Akiko with her, and she receives a telegram for Shikishima. Mm-hmm. She reads it. She rushes off. She grabs the baby and rushes off. And she finally finds Shikishima at the end when he gets off the boat after his mission is over. And she hits him because he had left an envelope of money for Akiko with her that morning. And didn't tell her before he left. She just found the kid in the envelope that way.
He didn't expect to come back, I think.
He wasn't. Yeah, I mean, he didn't know for sure, right? Like, even if he had tried to live.
Sure.
If he hadn't been on a kamikaze mission or whatever. Anyway. She hands him the telegram. He reads it. And then he takes the baby and starts running. He makes it to the hospital. And he finds Noriko. And she's bandaged up. I think she's got her arm in a sling. She's got her head's wrapped up. And all she says to him is your war finally over?
Oh.
And he, starts crying and, runs to her. And it's this whole thing. So they get to finally reunite and actually be a family. And
I don't even care that it's a Hollywood ending. I just love it so much. It just melts my heart.
Yeah. And I think to a degree, he probably feels like his ship crew is his family now too, right? Like they spend a lot of time together.
Oh, they have
bonded.
Meals
together. And the first time I watched it, I kept thinking, she can't be dead. She can't be dead.
Right. Just to be taken out like that.
Yeah. And then when I realized she wasn't, I was like, yes!
It happened after enough time had passed.
I don't even care that it's not realistic.
Yeah, the way she got blasted away, there's no way. But I'm going to allow it.
Well, and he was so tortured and shame spiraled and guilt ridden for so long. And it's just nice to see him really get that feeling of family.
Oh, yeah. And
at the end.
And the whole concept of
for all of them.
Found family for all of them. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, because none of them have any other family. Yeah. And
they found each other.
Yeah, they find each other and they bond. And that's what happens sometimes. Not everyone has the luxury of being born into the family that makes them feel at home.
True. And so we have a giant lizard movie that made us feel really deep feelings.
I'm so glad I watched it. And then when I watched the original, I was really glad that I saw that too. I got really curious after I watched the latest one.
Right. So I think we've come full circle. Did the 2023 movie deserve to be? Of course it did. What are we even talking about? I love this movie.
Yes. 100%. Well, according to
99%.
99%, yes, according to the critics.
I just think it's incredible. You can have 38 movies about a giant lizard, and the 38th movie is not beating a dead horse. It's just incredible that they were able to do something new with a very done-over story.
Just makes me wonder, like, what have I haven't seen any of the other ones, so now I'm like, what are all these other people doing? I mean, I know there's like monster versus monster.
It's a lot of monster versus monster ones, yeah. There's a weird thing about like fairies in a few of them. I have no idea where they came from. There's like these twin girls that are talking about. It gets weird real fast. I don't know where in the Godzilla timeline that happens. And then you have a lot of the modern ones that are, giant monster, usually attacking New York because, Americans, we ruin everything. One Godzilla lays a bunch of eggs in Madison Square Garden.
What?
It's a whole thing. And there's a Taco Bell tie-in. Anyway. And
there's
now
a Baja Blast get like brought in somehow.
I'll have to find out the time period on that. But in more modern ones, we have Godzilla teaming up with King Kong. I have not watched those. They're probably fun and schlocky, but I doubt they're the quality of -1 because it was just a good movie, and I felt for all of these characters so deeply. Yeah.
I think what you said about it was right, that it's like, it really is. This is how you introduced it to me.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, this is a human story told that happens to have a big monster in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was beautifully shot. Oh, and one of the other things is the use of silence in the sound design. There's, I think, 2 points in this film where everything goes silent. The first time it happened, I thought I was going deaf. And I was in sick world.
Oh.
So I was like, what's happening? But then no, it was really impactful too. And I think it's so easy to forget that, try to make things like louder and louder and louder to be impactful. And then sometimes it's like, no, you just need nothing.
The absence of sound speaks volumes.
It's sometimes deafening, right?
Right.
It's really powerful.
No, I think that's a great thing to comment on, the sound design. I can't talk enough about that movie. I can't believe that I love this Godzilla movie so much. It had such an effect on me after I saw it in the theater. I was just like, that was so good.
I have a question.
Oh, you do?
So, obviously both of us feel like both of these movies should have been made. What do you think about, because there's a sequel coming to Godzilla -1.
Right.
Do you think that one will have, sight unseen, obviously, because it hasn't been
I
released?
have nothing to go on.
Do you feel like that one will be as well done and worth the effort and time and money?
It's going to be so hard for them not to have all this expectation going into it now. Because, there's people like me who didn't expect a Godzilla movie to be more than just a giant monster. I mean, can you pull it off twice? Are we going to have the same human characters? How are we going to do it? I don't know. I am definitely interested to see where they go. I'm cautious about it, cautiously optimistic. But there's a possibility that they try to rehash it and it just doesn't work a second time. I don't know.
Me too now. I might go see it in the theater now that
It will have to make a date of it. It's probably coming out next year. Let's do it.
I'm signed up. We'll go. How do we find our show?
First of all, we're on Spotify. Give us a follow there. It counts for something. Instagram, we have Lights, Camera, Remake Podcast. Gmail, if you want to email us some suggestions, some thoughts, some concerns, some more Godzilla
trepidations.
Movies. Ooh, trepidations. That's good. Our Gmail is lightscameraRemake@gmail.com. If you want to find me, I don't know why you would. My Instagram is Bridget LaMonica. Everything I have is Bridget LaMonica, including my website, ada.com.
Boom. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at Stratocaster. You can find my Atlanta-based project, Gorgeous Beast, at gorgeousbeast.bandcamp.com. You can find my Indiana-based rock band at gimmesomeservice.bandcamp.com. You can find me on Letterboxd at Stratocaster. Please like and subscribe and review our podcast on Spotify. We would really appreciate it.
Thank you. And sharing is caring. Because everybody and their mother has a podcast.